Classic French-style ice cream is all about science. It's a foundation for understanding other types of ice cream, representing the most complete form of ice cream base. Jump ahead to watch how it's made if you just want a recipe, but stay if you're keen to learn the basics. The basic ingredient is liquid dairy, typically milk and cream. Here I use whole milk with 3.5% fat and heavy whipping cream with 36% fat. Traditional French style often uses more cream than milk for its fat content, but I use equal parts for a lighter result. Dairy provides both fat and milk solids, which are key for texture and flavor, but because of its water content, French-style ice cream often needs something to boost the solids without adding more fat. That's where skim milk powder comes in. It plays a crucial role, so don't skip it. For a clean label, premium quality French-style ice cream, egg yolk is the only emulsifier, so its ratio is usually high. Use large to extra large egg yolks. The acceptable range is 53 to 60 grams for 3 yolks. Next, white sugar, also known as sucrose. Sucrose is the baseline for sweet perception among all sugars, and a baseline for freezing point of all ingredients. For sweet perception, glucose, inverse syrup, or honey are common sugars that trigger a tongue. More sugar can taste less sweet, or less sugar sweeter. These sugars also help lower the freezing point of ice cream, which helps prevent iciness. However, I find they're not a key to reducing large ice crystals, so for this base recipe, I use white sugar only. Salt, on the other hand, is critical for reducing ice crystals. Its role goes beyond just seasoning. Use table salt, which is near pure sodium chloride. Sea salt, bamboo salt, Himalayan salt, or colored salt are not recommended. Salt is probably the strongest ingredient in depressing freezing point of water. Like salt, ethanol is another potent ingredient. I highly recommend spiritus, which contains as much as 96% alcohol by volume. With water content so low, it won't ruin the ice cream. A small amount goes a long way. More ethanol does the opposite effect. Note that all ingredients in this recipe are based on specific calculations. Don't change anything unless specified. This recipe makes a small batch. Try to use a flat metal container rather than a tall, narrow one. Before using it, place it in the freezer for at least 1 hour. If you double the recipe, don't use one large container. Split the batch into 2 smaller ones instead. Okay, with all of the above established, let's make the ice cream. In a pot, weigh 185 grams milk with an equal amount of heavy whipping cream. Put it on the stove and start heating on low to medium heat. Use a whisk to mix gently. When the liquid no longer feels cold, add half of the total 55 grams white sugar, along with 1.3 grams table salt. Whisk till dissolved. When the mixture feels quite warm to touch but not hot, add 28 grams skim milk powder. At this temperature, it should dissolve instantly without lumps. Let it continue heating while we move over to counter. In a large bowl, add 3 yolks and the remaining half of the sugar. Immediately whisk vigorously till the sugar dissolves and the color slightly pales. Set it aside. Whisk the liquid in the pot frequently. When the temperature reaches about 80 degrees Celsius, turn off the heat and bring the pot over to the yolk mixture. Temper the yolk mixture slowly by adding a small amount of the dairy mixture while whisking constantly. Repeat the process. When about 2/3 of dairy mixture has been tempered, switch and pour all of the tempered batter back into the pot. Put the pot back on low heat. From now on, keep stirring, especially at the bottom, non-stop, to evenly distribute the temperature and prevent eggs from scrambling. When the batter reaches about 82 degrees Celsius, turn off the heat. Immediately strain the batter through the sieve, shake off the excess, and remove the sieve. Use a spatula to stir constantly and even out the temperature. By the way, the batter now coats the spatula. If you run your finger through and the line doesn't close, it's a simple way to check doneness, in case you don't have a thermometer. Also, place a bowl on ice cubes or ice packs to speed up cooling while stirring the batter continuously. When it cools to room temperature, add 2.7 grams spiritus and immediately whisk thoroughly. Cover with plastic wrap directly touching the surface and put it in the refrigerator. Ideally, let it age overnight. But if you're in a rush, chill it for at least an hour or till the temperature drops to 4 degrees. At this point, if you have an ice cream machine, just pour in the batter and churn. Otherwise, pour it in a container. The poured batter should be no taller than 4 centimeters. Home freezers often only reach about -13 degrees Celsius and lose cold air quickly when the door is opened, so a smaller and flatter shape speeds up freezing. Place the batter in the freezer for 40 to 45 minutes. Then take it out and use a whisk or fork to loosen the sides and bottom. Then give the batter a good mix. Return it to the freezer and repeat this process 5 to 7 times over 4 to 5 hours. It's a boring process, but it mimics the churning of an ice cream machine and is key to preventing large ice crystals from forming while evening out the smaller ones, therefore reducing the icy taste in the final product. However, it's almost impossible to eliminate icy taste unless you have a good ice cream machine. What you can do is control what's controllable, like balancing the ingredients within ideal scientific ranges, and manage the uncontrollable, like minimizing large ice crystals to replicate what a machine does. So this is my 6th stirring. The edges have become quite stiff, and I can barely scrape them with a fork. The center, though, is not fully stiff. That's a sign this is my last stir. If your batter is still much softer, something went wrong, and ice cream quality won't be great. Take this chance to mix thoroughly and whisk in some air to improve overall. Return it to the freezer for 8 to 24 hours. Before serving, take it out and let it thaw slightly for a few minutes. Pour boiling water into a container and insert your ice cream scooper to heat ahead for easier scooping. A 1 tablespoon size scooper yields about 50 grams per ice cream scoop. After scooping, immediately return the container to the freezer. A small tip: freeze the ice cream bowl for an hour before serving to prevent the bottom from melting too fast. This ice cream has the hallmark of French style, rich and creamy, but not overly so. When done right, it melts on your tongue like premium quality, though you may still feel tiny crystals when chewing. If you plan to enjoy several scoops at a time, place the container in a large pan filled with ice to prevent the edges from thawing too quickly or too much. Without stabilizers, thawed and pre-frozen ice cream will taste icier. The density depends on how much air is incorporated, but it's hard to measure. If you beat it vigorously, it might fall into French style category. If not, congrats, you've got a hybrid gelato. I spent less than 3 weeks studying ice cream and testing 7 recipes. There was a lot of frustration, but also a lot of learning. I hope you'll try this recipe this summer, and let me know if you have more questions.